Alright, let's talk about October 1962. This is the moment where humanity came closest to completely deleting itself from existence. And it all started because of a massive game of secret keeping in America's literal backyard. An American U-2 spy plane is flying over Cuba, taking high-resolution photos of the ground. When the CIA develops the film, they don't find the standard military bases. They find Soviet medium-range nuclear ballistic missiles being built. To put this into perspective, before this, if the Soviet Union wanted to nuke America, they had to fly bombers across the Atlantic or launch rockets from Moscow, giving the US hours to prepare. Now, these missiles in Cuba could wipe out Washington DC or New York in under 10 minutes. President John F. Kennedy gets the news on a Tuesday morning. You can just imagine him sitting in the Oval Office, rubbing his temples, realizing he is holding a live grenade. If he does nothing, America is defenseless. If he invades Cuba, he starts World War III. Normal, relaxing, Tuesday vibes. Why did Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev do this? Well, the US had recently put nuclear missiles in Turkey, right on the Soviet border. So Khrushchev basically said, "How do you like it when the missiles are in your face?" JFK's advisors immediately tell him to bomb the missile sites. But Kennedy knows that if a single Russian engineer dies, Moscow will retaliate by vaporizing Berlin. So, he decides to compromise. He announces a naval quarantine, which is just a fancy legal word for a blockade, around Cuba. He tells the Soviet ships, if you cross this line with military equipment, we will open fire. Khrushchev fires back, calling the blockade an act of aggression. For several days, Soviet cargo ships loaded with missile parts steamed directly toward the US Navy line. The entire world holds its breath. People are literally hoarding canned food because everyone thinks tomorrow is not happening. While the world is watching the ships on the surface, the actual terrifying climax happens deep underwater. The US Navy spots a Soviet B-59 submarine near Cuba. What the Americans don't know is that this submarine is carrying a tactical nuclear torpedo. And even worse, the crew has been underwater for days. The air conditioning is broken. It's 50 degrees Celsius inside. That's 122 Fahrenheit for my American brothers. And they have lost all radio communication with Moscow. The US Navy starts dropping signaling depth charges to force the submarine to surface. To the Americans, these are just loud warning shots. But inside the hot, suffocating Soviet sub, the crew hears explosions and thinks World War III has already started on the surface. The submarine's captain, Valentin Savitsky, panics. He decides to arm the nuclear torpedo and order a launch. To fire it, all 3 senior officers on board have to say yes. The captain says yes. The political officer says yes. But the third guy, a 36-year-old commander named Vasily Arkhipov, says no. He manages to calm the captain down and convinces him to surface instead. Think about that. The entire human race survived because one guy in a sweaty submarine decided to take a breather. Back on land, JFK and Khrushchev realize things are spinning completely out of control before their generals accidentally blow up the planet. They start sending secret late-night back-channel messages to each other, completely bypassing the media and their own military staff. Finally, they cut a secret deal. Khrushchev agrees to pack up the missiles and ship them back to Russia. In return, the US publicly promises never to invade Cuba, and secretly, behind closed doors, JFK agrees to pull the American missiles out of Turkey a few months later. The crisis ended as fast as it started. The world didn't end. The missiles were disassembled, and a direct hotline telephone was installed between Washington and Moscow, so the 2 leaders could just call each other next time, instead of playing chicken with nuclear weapons. It's the ultimate example of how close we can get to the edge, and why having a literal chill pill in leadership is sometimes the only thing keeping us alive.